We good to start?
I think we're good.
All right.
Good, Chair.
Well, hello, everyone. Once again, I'm Jerome Horn, new chair, and excited to kick off the 2026 season for the Mayor's Bicycle Advisory Commission. Hello to my fellow commissioners. And at this time, I'm going to do a roll call to see who's on the call. And just a quick reminder, while we're on this call, the call is being recorded. We please ask that you use the chat for questions and things like that as we go along. And I'm going to do my best to keep us on time. So now, Commissioner roll call. I am here. Jermaine Jones. Quentin.
Present.
Sean Becker.
Present.
Oh, good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Matthew.
Present.
Sean Burnett.
I am present.
Jamie.
Not sure if Bemi is able to make it today.
Veronica Davis. Omar.
I'm here.
Lieutenant Charlie. Patrick McMahon.
Hi, present.
Sarah McTeer. Michelle Peralta. Patrick Terranova. Daniel Thompson.
Present. I'm here.
And Graham Young.
I think Graham's on snow duty.
All righty. Well, hopefully we'll catch anyone if they join in later. Thanks for that. All right, we're going to move on and sort of quickly go over our agenda for today. We're going to have an introduction from Omar. Then we'll go into project updates. We'll have a resurfacing and bike projects overview. We'll transition to reviews where we'll talk about bicycle-friendly speed humps and existing cycle track review. We'll transition into citations for parking and bike lanes. We'll get an update from that, an update on micromobility. We'll take a look at the latest for the Bikeable Baltimore Region plan and updates. We'll hear from Patrick about in-back ride proposals, and then we'll go over any upcoming community updates and events. So at this time, I'd like to give Omar Faison the floor to introduce yourself and kind of tell us about why you want to be on the commission. And make sure, did I say your last name correctly? Is it Faison?
It is. That's very nice of you to actually get it right. That's very rare. But hi, I'm Omar. I am the mobility organizer here at Bikemore. I'm here at trying to get Bikemore's movement going through and connected to the city even more than it already is. I am a transplant from Richmond area, Virginia. Came in here about August of 2024, and I am a cyclist everywhere. So I do not drive, and I'm walking and biking and taking public transit. So I'm trying to make sure that we get a better more bikeable Baltimore.
All right. Thank you so much, Omar. Welcome to the commission, and we look forward to having you. All right. At this time, we'll transition into project updates with resurfacing from Matthew.
Awesome. Next slide, please. Hey, everyone. So just kind of as a recap on this, so as part of our resurfacing program, we are now searching for overlays with the 2017 Bike Master Plan, and as part of our Complete Streets law, we need to identify when we overlay with those facilities and then create a plan to install the facility or upgrade the facility. With that going on. In the 2025 list, we have identified one facility that we'll be acting upon. And unfortunately, just due to kind of logistics, we aren't able to say that at this meeting, but we are looking to release the streets of Baltimore for that project fairly soon within this winter timeframe. And we're already looking ahead at the FY 2026 list to again start concept planning, work with our implementation team, our tech, to get quantities and material for projects that are overlaid in the next year.
All right.
Oh, I think we did this one already.
All right, we'll move on to our bicycle projects overview with Sean Barnett. That is.
Good clarification. Good afternoon, everybody. So we're going to run through a map of kind of some of the current projects that have to do with active transportation facilities. I wonder if can we pull that up? Awesome. So as you can see, this is kind of a nearly comprehensive list of all of the active transportation projects underway at the moment. Some of these have construction dates already. Looking at January 27, the Mount Royal Avenue Road Diet. This is completing the portion that was left unconstructed by BG&E, is anticipated to be completed within the next 12 months. We also have the Harford Road cycletrack extension, as well as the shared stops and bus bulbs. That will be constructed within the next 12 months. And then you can see the next couple of projects, Green Spring, Washington, and Central Ave, right now are in various elements of late design. And we anticipate all three of those to be under construction by this time next year. The rest of these, and feel free to take a screenshot, or I'm sure we're sharing this slide deck post meeting. So this is a longer list of all of the projects that we have right now that are currently in some stage of design. And then here we have a map of updated map of the existing bike facilities. Ms. Hanslick, as well as some other members of our team in DOT, have been working very hard to put some of this together, to update it. Here, what's being shown on the screen is sort of a map layout of that project work plan. So you can see all of the facilities that are currently under design or soon to be under construction. And look at that, we even have them all identified. Okay. And so this is another accompanying map with the anticipated status of this time next year.
All right, and I failed to ask if anyone has questions for either Matthew or Sean related to the two items we just heard about.
And we'll take questions from the commissioners first.
This is Patrick. I had asked DOT to do something like this because I felt like the last commission meeting that we had, it felt like there were sort of updates, but they weren't connected necessarily. And I think it's really helpful. And I appreciate that DOT pulled this together to see where things are, and so that we've got a better understanding of how the projects that are being developed fit within a system. But I think it also leads us to think about where are things missing and where are those gaps that we need to be filling in. But I won't say anything more.
Great, thank you, Patrick. Anyone else, any other commissioner comments or questions?
I had a question just on the figure that we're looking at, what the thinner lines are, what those represent. Oh, thank you.
That's a great question, Michelle. Yeah, that's just referring to what we have existing as part of our network today. There are a variety of different types of facilities on there, which is why all the colors, but for the sake of this, we just kind of wanted to demonstrate, what gaps are we anticipating filling within the next year. So the focus is really on the bigger, bolder lines in the following slides. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, thanks. The slide that's up answers the question.
Okay,
thanks.
Great. I'm also seeing that in our chat, we've got Ursula and Tim. Are folks able to read what those chat messages are saying? Because I'm seeing on my side, it's saying the message cannot be decrypted. I can't imagine
can
that's
read
what.
them.
Okay.
Yeah. So
And
question. Oh, go ahead.
go ahead, Chair.
Yeah, so we have a question from Ursula. Is there a plan to clean up all of the current and future bike lanes?
So if a bike facility has debris in it that would make it unusable, we would ask the community to submit that via a 311 request so that our operations teams can go out and do some periodic cleaning, some spot cleaning. We are in the process of looking at our maintenance plan, specifically at obtaining some new equipment that will make it easier to do regular cleaning of the bike lanes. But for right now, the process for trying to clean up some of these where you're noticing that there is debris or obstructions, we would request that you guys put that through 311 so that they can be tracked, so that we can take a look at where these are and we can send our operations teams out. And then Chair, would you like me to address the next question as well?
Yes, from Tim, go ahead.
So the process for selecting future bike lane projects is an evolving one. Right now, the way that we process these through and prioritize them rather is through an in-house matrix. That matrix takes into account a number of different factors, its benefit to the network, the benefits to connectivity in the area, whether or not that facility has what we would call equitable connections. So does it connect neighborhoods of need to assistance like grocery stores or employment dense areas? We also take a look at our budget, and our budget is a large portion of what dictates kind of the size and scope of some of the projects that we pursue. In the future, the hope is to overhaul that matrix and create sort of a longer range capital plan that can be very specific about which projects people can expect from the agencies in ensuing years. But we're still working on that process and will likely be rolling out as part of a larger effort to update all of our bike related programming.
Thanks, Sean. And we have a few more comments. There's a comment from Patrick. Lots of red on this map showing churros or just signed routes that probably need upgrading. Someone was reiterating they were curious to hear about the process for selecting bike lane projects. Another comment from Patrick, there's some big gaps on the west and east sides. Another comment from Ursula, regular cleaning is vital. It's a lot of debris. Michelle, I would love to find some alignment with that, connecting underserved communities to access to care and hospitals and pharmacies. Any other questions? Is there a map? Omar asks, is there a map for only all ages facilities, given that this is the design standard for the current and future?
So there's a couple of different questions in there. To answer Mr. McMahon's, the agency has set aside some money that is specific for upgrading some of our facilities. We're going to be taking a good look at those over the course of the next 12 months fiscal year to try and decide where best to apply that kind of support. And then I guess for the question from Omar, right now we don't have a bespoke map that is only for all ages facilities. But what we do have is a map that shows very clearly which of the portions of the network are all ages. And also moving forward, yes, it is the agency's priority to construct all ages facility whenever possible.
All right. And then Adele, is your hand still up from last time or you have a new question?
Sorry, I can lower it. It was up from last time.
All right. We're doing good on time. Any other questions or comments related to this before we move on? All right. We'll move on to our next section. So we're going to look at speed hump design and review, and we're going to hear again from our friend Matthew Bleakney.
Hey everyone. So just as a premise, this is kind of part of a broader initiative to update the standards that you can find online and to create both more options for us, Baltimore City, to use in our traffic calming arsenal, and then also just kind of improvements we can make. So as part of this project, I'm just gonna go through it and we'll start exactly with what are bike-friendly humps. And right, sometimes we see these things are slotted and all. So just a little background. So right, humps, I kind of described as they use the grades and geometry and transitions between those grades to provide traffic calming and then make it bike friendly by making sure that there's a smooth transition over that hump. So right, you're balancing again traffic calming effectiveness with ease for a bike to navigate. The cushions are where you see gaps in the cycletrack, and we'll have some picture views of this too, but essentially right there are gaps for cyclists to go through, and then also we can modify these gaps for fire truck usage too. But right, we got to balance then the convenience of those gaps with making sure it's not able for cars to kind of go through there. And then just finally, within BC DOT choosing to use what traffic calming measures, humps and cushions are our preferred method, and we use tools to kind of prioritize them. So we look at speeds on that roadway, the geometries of the roadway, so that can be a vertical or horizontal curve. So think a hill or a bend, just general blind spots, and then roadway types, right? We're not going to put speed humps on Northern Parkway because that is an arterial road that has truck traffic and lots of volume on it, whereas a local road would be more appropriate for a speed hump. So next slide, please. So again, this is just kind of visualizing the difference I was talking about. Again, a hump is, you can think this continuous monolith that, again, you look at the geometry of how that's put down to make sure, again, there's a convenience or a factor that allows a cyclist to go smoothly through it, but it's also not soft enough or not big enough that, a car can just pass through it at speed. And then same with the cushions, right? You have those gaps in there, so you can cut through the gaps. We can even design that again for fire apparatuses to go through, but then placing them correctly to prevent a car from just driving over those. And then just looking at, right, this is again a project to kind of increase this arsenal, but there are 3 standard designs that exist. They're under the 578 series, and you can find them at the link below. And then there's also just a good kind of DOT reference guide below too. And of those guides, we have 1 hump design and then 2 cushion designs for different road lengths and road types. Next slide. So the first one we'll go over is our .01 example. So I actually pulled from St. Lo Drive. Just, you could think of this as a really big hump. This is actually technically a speed table, but right, this is still designed, and actually this helps with fire apparatuses too, but it's designed to have a more gentle geometry. So again, you're preventing cars from overly speeding on this road, but it's got a gentle geometry to allow fire apparatuses to mount this hump at, you know, a higher speed for them and navigate it. And along, if you were a cyclist, the geometries like going up the hump, over and down, are just a little more smoother, so that transition for a cyclist is easier. Next slide, please. So this is another one. This is our O2 design, and you can find these, for example, on Covington Street. And again, these are the ones where they have 2 slots in them. They're specifically spaced, again, so a fire apparatus can go through them, but also when that's not happening, a cyclist can cut through those gaps. And then next slide, please. And then very similar to this is our Dash 03 design. This is designed to only have 1 cut through, so it's very useful for one-way roads, and then also when the roads are really narrow. So the more cuts you put in there, the wider that speed hump has to be, so then it restricts it from usage on narrower roads. This is just a look at, you know, as part of our process and our redesign, kind of what do peer cities do. So we actually reached out to Portland to get a sense of what they were using, Portland, Oregon, not Portland, Maine. They get a sense of kind of what were they looking at, what are the designs they have, and where you can see here on the left that they move their cuts around a lot, so they have a lot more flexibility in their cushion design, and their channels are actually slightly smaller than ours. So they did a in-depth study to look at, you know, what cycles can go through. I think they looked at the pedal size, or the crank sizes, sorry, my apologies, to make sure it wouldn't interfere with those cuts. So, I think the big takeaway from this is just helping us reference, like us, Baltimore City, looking at what designs are possible, and then especially for that channel design, understanding, you know, how small or how can we actually tune in these cuts. And next one. So what are we doing? What changes are we looking at? Right now we are looking at that channel or cut placement and design. So again, if we make that cut smaller, right now our standard is 3 feet. If we put it down to 2, it lets us use it on more roads, because you can have, again, it on smaller road widths. And then also just making sure that it still aligns with that fire axis. So it's kind of a dual purpose here. We are also looking at creating a standard design to help with ADA movement. So a lot of times on certain corridors, the sidewalks may need a large capital improvement project, but also we need traffic calming. So what we are looking at is at the speed humps, adding flex post to prevent people from parking there, and then allow either ADA or bike riders to then navigate around those flex posts and have kind of this access to a clear space or a safe space, especially the electronic wheelchairs, We've gotten a lot of reports from our ADA team that when they try to navigate even the bike-friendly humps, that they can have a risk of tipping. So this would provide a space that they could access. And then that kind of goes again with the current reviewing vertical grades. We're just kind of reviewing those to make sure that, hey, our standards are up to date and make sense. And then I think another slice of this too is, you know, we're on the engineering side, we're making these updates, we're increasing that arsenal of tools, but also working with our operational side just to make sure that, you know, they have clear guidance when to use what humps and are adhering to the geometric designs. So, you know, that can be very hard sometimes out there in the field. So just making sure that we're communicating with each other to ensure that Baltimore is getting its best.
All right, thank you so much, Matthew. Before we move on, are there any questions or comments from our commissioners? And if not, we do have some things in the chat related to this. Tim in the chat asks, what distance between humps and cushions does DOT target? As in, how far apart are they spaced on any given road?
Yeah, I think, and I'm kind of recalling this from memory, I'd have to ask our operations people again, but I think generally we target 175 feet between hump to hump or cushion to cushion. And then that can be affected by, again, like geometry of road. So the grade, and are also speed data. So there's a few factors that may help us adjust that a little bit.
All right, we got a comment from Ursula. Humps are great, very appreciated. And then another comment about streets being cleaned properly, and those side gap channels accumulate a lot of debris. We have a sort of question from Nick Snyder. I recall hearing that raised crosswalks and speed. Chat jumped on me. Recall hearing that raised crosswalks and speed humps and crosswalks aren't common in the city because of design implementation knowledge gaps. If that is the case, are we doing anything to fill in that gap or to start building them? Would love them to become more common throughout the city.
So I can answer that question. So the reason that we don't often and haven't often in the past installed those sorts of facilities doesn't really have anything to do with a design implementation knowledge gap. It has more to do with the fact that the cost is much higher for those. And it also requires a much longer process of engineering and approval. When we, as part of 311 requests for traffic calming and the like, go out to install these things, the metric of success for the divisions that are installing them is speed. Doing some of these raised crosswalks and some of these other things have drainage concerns. They have other engineering requirements. They're not as they cannot be placed as ubiquitously as normal speed bumps, which means that the warrant levels are higher. So all of this contributes to an environment sometimes where those are more likely to be included as part of longer range projects and less likely to be included as part of kind of like one-off 311 fulfillments. However, we are working with traffic to try and see if there are ways to improve upon that, ways to get approved designs through the stormwater team faster and more efficiently, because we do recognize that it's something that has a lot of value if implemented correctly.
Thanks, Sean. We have another question from Jed in the chat. What is the plan to get speed humps that were installed on regular bike routes that did not meet these standards retrofitted?
It's a great question. It would be a question for traffic and repaving. Matthew, if you can't speak to that, Jed, maybe we can email you following up after we touch base with resurfacing and Kiana.
Yeah, I think we'll have to do that and follow up on that question.
Okay.
And then we'll take one more question here about, is there a way to request a speed hump on a specific street?
311. 311 is the go-to process for requesting traffic calming on your street. We don't allow individual citizens to request specific traffic calming treatments. However, if you are concerned about speeds on a roadway, there is a portion or an input in 311 where you can report that, and the city will come out and do an investigation, a warrant study, and try to, if possible, take corrective action.
All right, and we see there's one more comment or question from Melanie about burying PVC pipes under an asphalt raised crosswalk to channel stormwater. So I don't know if that's design specific question or just a comment, but
I guess I can hit that a little bit, and just that I think we have, maybe not for speed humps, but for other apparatuses like bus bulbs and all, we have done PVC pipe before, and I think sometimes that just gets clouded with debris. So I think what our preference, at least on the speed hump side, is usually is to leave the gutter, so it's about a 1 foot buffer from the road edge free. And you can actually see that kind of baked in some of the designs. Or on that St. Lo speed tables, you can actually see it cuts off like right at that 1 foot buffer is what we prefer. Yeah, so that concrete lip, right, the curb goes down off to the right. Yeah, that's right. There's no speed hump there, so it kind of allows more drainage to happen. Awesome.
All right.
Good
Thank
idea,
you.
good question. So
Okay, we will move on to our next review of existing cycle tracks with Patrick McMahon.
Hi. So a little bit timely on that. I guess I had been thinking about even some of the best facilities that we have, our existing cycle tracks, have some design challenges that need to be addressed and that can make our existing bike facilities much better. And the two things I'm going to highlight here are the right or left turn on red signage and drainage. So if we can skip to the next piece. So I looked at 3 different sections along on 3 different roadways where there are right or left turn on red signs that allow people to turn across cycle tracks for large portions of the day. This is a place that this is right by the prison at Falls Way in Madison. For most of last year, I was working Sunday mornings at the farmer's market. And so I would come through here around 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, and would really be hoping and expecting that people weren't going to turn across and hit me. But I find it concerning that our existing signage along cycle tracks often allows people to turn across those 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. or 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. or something like that. So we can skip through a couple of these. I didn't go through every cycle track, every single bit, but this is at Guilford and Biddle, where again, we've got signage that says people can turn across the cycle track from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then I think the next one is at Maryland and 24th. Yeah. And again, allowing people to turn across the cycle track to make a left turn at this point from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And I think these facilities should be safe 24/7. And it seems like this is a relatively simple fix that we could do that would make our existing bike facilities more safe and probably isn't something that was thought enough about when these facilities were originally designed more than a decade ago, or something where people sort of said, well, there's not going to be that many people riding later, but like the Maryland and 24th, not this one, the Fallsway and Biddle one, I think is at 4 p.m. Like most of the people that ride that are riding after 4 p.m. A lot of people are commuting home at 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. And so this is something that I would like to see DOT sort of do a comprehensive review of right turn or left turn on red signage at cycle tracks and fix them, and then sort of make a policy so that as we're moving forward, we don't have this kind of thing happen again. And then the next slide, the last slide, is somebody was talking just a minute ago about drainage and about sort of using little pieces. And I didn't get down and measure this, but I think basically each of the 3 bus bulbs that happen along the Fallsway and Guilford Avenue cycle track of the Jones Falls Trail have roughly like a 2-inch by 2-inch little tube that runs through that, and it's just not enough. It always gets clogged by leaves, by other stuff, and by trash. And as a result, you end up with big things of water that become big sheets of ice, and a lot of safety issues that result from that. It's just uncomfortable, but there are times that it's genuinely dangerous. And so this is something where I'm hoping that we could, if you click again, maybe it will bring up sort of do a saw cut for a wider opening and put a metal plate on top of there so that we can have better drainage here and so that that's easy for DOT to come through and clean, or even for regular users to come through and clean by flipping that up. I know it's not super easy and there's only 3 of these here, but I think these are the kind of incremental improvements to the existing bicycle facilities that could make them much better and could make progress and improve the conditions for people bicycling without this is going to take a decade for us to do a study and then do a design process and then apply for grants to fund this, that these are things that could probably be done in a more affordable way. So that was my hope in putting this forward. And I was hoping that other commission members will sort of come up with ideas and provide guidance to DOT and to the mayor's offices for the mayor's advisory commission about how we'd like to see low cost improvements to the bike facilities. So I've talked too much, but
all good. Thank you, Patrick, for presenting this. And this is great to highlight some of the low hanging fruit and places where little things add up, right? If you fix some of these little things, they do make a big difference over time. So thank you for bringing this up and bringing it to the commission. Do we have any other comments or questions regarding these items from existing commissioners?
I'm also curious to hear from DOT staff, like, is this something that would be really expensive and really difficult, or is this something that would be relatively achievable, and what's the best path forward?
So, I mean, I'm happy to address some of these, if that's all right, Commissioner.
Yeah, I know it's a tech sort of thing, but
well, the majority of these could be handled by traffic. Looking at it, it's likely that the majority of these were given these sorts of temporal turn permissions to try and get ahead of what they thought might be significant stacking issues. Some of these, like Fallsway and Madison, and the block on Maryland, they don't have a lot of, there's no storage. And so if there was significant like ADT, I could see some issues. But I'm very familiar with both these intersections as well. And I think that now looking at them, I think we can safely kind of move past some of those considerations. So what I'll do is I'll have Mr. Bleakney take note of some of these offerings. And maybe this is something that we can coordinate with traffic about to identify some of these for modification in the future.
thanks, Sean. And I know this is not a comprehensive list. I just grabbed 3
Right.
that had relatively good screenshots from Street View.
And to say, I'm not aware of the city being in possession of like a comprehensive and updated sign inventory for a lot of our stuff. So this will likely be a moving target, something that, as they're brought up and brought to our attention, we can take a look at, determine whether or not they're really necessary and make those modifications.
I'm happy to take an afternoon to ride around with Mr. Bleakney.
That sounds
Wait till it warms up a little bit, boys. It's
I was gonna say, Sean, I'll go down in the snow. Yeah, I can definitely note kind of what you said, Sean, and look at some of these that are presented or are in the chat on a case by case basis, and then I think just if you're okay with me kind of answering to the crowd or Patrick for DOT, I think to make this a larger scale effort would require maybe doing a further analysis or kind of doing a case by case check on each of those intersections. So it would be a larger scope effort, is I guess what I'm trying to say.
I do want to point out that I think it's important that we take a note to
Mm.
review these whenever we are upgrading existing facilities. I think
Yes.
that that's kind of a good
Mhm.
kind of middle fix for what I'm sure is a very wide-reaching but also sporadic issue.
Yeah.
That's a great point,
Yeah.
Sean, because they just repaved that Falls Way and Madison intersection.
Mhm.
And I didn't go through this, but there's a secondary challenge at that intersection of the cycle track north of the intersection is on the east side, the cycle
Right,
track south of that is on the west side,
right.
and you have to do some sort of dangerous diagonal or try and cross one section and then try and cross another, but they're both very heavy volume movements, and so it's a really challenging piece. So
Mhm.
so southbound, that's a bigger challenge to fix there than just fixing a sign.
Right. That's a striping bike box, use ped crossing as, kind of like Jenga puzzle. We'll take note. But yeah, I think moving forward, it's a great point. I think that as we kind of upgrade facilities, um, especially in the next like 2 years, while we're kind of have the money for it and we're hardening some of these, taking a look at the signage along the corridor in addition to some of that is good practice. Okay.
Yeah, these are is good discussion to have, and there's a lot of support in the chat. There's a lot of more comments about specific intersections where this is an issue. So Matthew's taking note. There was someone made a comment about snow clearance,
Mm.
and that's actually a really good question that I myself have. So just saying that a lot of these bike lanes have not been cleared of snow,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
I'm actually
So,
unfamiliar myself with the policy is on snow clearance of the bike lanes.
um, so I think it's important to know a little bit about kind of operationally what the city does and how the city clears snow. Um, so the city identifies priority routes as kind of a phase one. Phase one is the immediate roadway clearing that needs to be done in order to give people access to hospitals, to dig out the fire stations, is essentially a map that dictates where the efforts go on day one and day two. Um, phase two starts to outline a larger portion of city streets, these that are connecting, trying to connect some of the phase one streets together. We're still looking at primary arterials. We are not in phase two yet moving on to things like neighborhood streets or some of these other things. And so it kind of waterfalls from there when you're trying to dig yourself out as a city. Um, right now, bike lanes are a little further down the list than maybe we would like them to be. This is going to be something that the city is going to continue to try and refine their process on. One of the challenges has been the lack of specialized equipment, something that the city is hoping to remedy in the next year. We have some money set aside for specialized equipment. Um, some of the work can be done by bobcats or other small fleet vehicles that we possess. But some of the single bike lanes that are a little more narrow will require kind of bespoke treatment. So we beg everybody's patience. We recognize that during times where there's a lot of snow, that it's often the most dangerous time to drive, and dually is the most dangerous time to be a bicyclist. But we also recognize that people have transportation needs. And so as we continue to try and dig ourselves out, if you see a piece of the network that you feel like needs treatment, um, there is a number, and I don't have it offhand, but maybe somebody else on the call can find it, but there is a way to report snow blockages, um, it is not 311. I have to look, but DPW has a number, a hotline, where they're collecting citizens' concerns about specific portions of the road network. And so if you identify that there's a bike lane that is critically important to the network that has not yet been cleared, or there has been a plow that has pushed snow into it, making it unusable, please report that in, and DPW will get to it.
Thanks, Sean, for that update on the city's sort of process and the phases. And you said that's something hopefully we'll continue to push on. Obviously, there are certain priorities immediately after the snowstorm. Excited to hear that the city is working towards purchasing vehicles, though, that can help with clearance of the cycle tracks. And clearly, this is an issue for not just cyclists, right? Pedestrians, our bus riders, right? There's a lot of challenges after snow to make places really accessible for folks that are walking and biking or using mobility devices. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? And if not, yeah, just some other great comments in the chat, just reiterating the need for, making clearing spaces and making, places more accessible after events like this. All right, if there are no more questions, we can move on to our next section, which will be citations for parking in bike lanes. And that's once again, Mr. Sean Burnett.
All right. So I'm going to ask May's help if I miss any of the important details about these data points that she's cultivated. But right now we have on screen the showcase from, this would be from October 1st to December 31st of last year. Feels like yesterday. There were 289 citations issued throughout this portion. You can see the breakdown in the next portion of which months saw the majority of those tickets handed out. Looks like they did a lot of great work in October. November, maybe many less people parked in bike lanes. And December, a couple more did, but we caught them all. And then right here we have kind of the breakdown by street, and you can kind of see on the map those yellow dots indicate sort of the highest density areas where tickets were issued. And there's the last slide with all of it together.
Great, thanks again, Sean. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? We have a question in the chat. How do citations occur? Can bikers report cars packed in on the bike lanes, or do cops have to see it themselves?
Great question. So cops traditionally don't issue parking citations. That is the job of our parking enforcement. And the way that you can request citations or bring these to the enforcement's attention is through 311.
And in relation to 311, what is the typical response time for a 311 request for a parking violation?
Great question. And one that the administration has been dutifully asking the agency. We are working on refining our process right now. Some of the responses are very quick, but we've also had some issues with our reporting mechanisms in the past and our Salesforce process. What I can say is that we are working diligently to hire more parking enforcement officers, to expand their hours to be 24 hours a day, and also to try and continue to improve the feedback loop of putting in a request or a complaint, and seeing some sort of decisive action on the back end of that.
All right. Let's see. We've got a few more comments in the chat here. Jed's just talking about what the BCDOT has said about bike lane facilities being plowed concurrently with adjacent travel lanes, but some of the challenges there that all 311 requests have been filed and closed, but the plows have not returned. Just some more comments about people filing 311 requests and the amount of time that it takes for those to be resolved. And then someone talking about having issues with 311 with the 311 app when trying to submit photos for some users. So, anything else in this section before we move on?
On that last note, I'll just note that you can submit a 311 request for an issue with the app itself, which I recently learned. So if you're experiencing issues with uploading photos, you can submit a request saying that you're having that issue, which feels a little meta, but it is possible.
Great tidbit, May. Thank you. Okay, I think we can move ahead to our next section. So we're going to get a micromobility update from Tyler Smith of our dockless vehicle program at BCDOT.
Hey everybody, I turned my camera on, but I'm showing a blank screen on my screen. Not sure what that's about, but anyway, hello. We had a big year in dockless vehicle trips. That is the shared e-bikes and e-scooters provided currently by Lime and Spin in Baltimore City. We eclipsed 3 million trips for the first time in program history, nearly doubling the previous record of 1.7 million trips in 2019. I know this is a bike-focused meeting, so the e-bike trips were over 450,000 of those trips. So roughly 1 in 6 trips are e-bike trips. And a lot of that has to do with the significant number of new e-bikes that Lime brought to the market in the middle of 2024, and just people really taking to using them quite consistently. Interestingly, also, the average distance of a trip on the e-bike trip is higher than on a scooter trip. It's closer to 1.5 miles. And we also saw in a research project from Lime that new protected bike lanes really drive up ridership for dockless vehicles. So just something to keep in mind that, you know, if there are folks saying that there's not that many bicyclists using the bike lanes, don't forget to bring up there's a great number of scooter riders using the bike lanes, which is one reason why only thinking about bikes when it comes to bike lanes is a mistake. And of course, we saw big savings in greenhouse gases, roughly 200,000 of those units of greenhouse gases saved in 2025. Next slide, please. And in fact, 7 of the highest ridership months in program history happened in 2025, with August being the highest ridership month. So just another way of looking at the popularity of these dockless vehicles for Baltimore City. And interestingly also, that I mentioned the Lime research report, safety incidents went down on these vehicles by about 20% in protected bike lanes. So they drive up ridership, they drive down safety incidents. Yeah, that is the micromobility update. Happy to take questions at this time.
Thank you so much, Tyler. And that's great to see. Good to see ridership is up and that we're seeing numbers go in the direction we'd like, especially with safety. I have a question myself. I'm curious if you just have any more insight or data into were there any interesting trends you noticed in terms of origin and destination about where people were going, or any routes or things that you saw that were just more to glean from any other data that was collected in terms of really where people were going to and from, or times of day that were interesting, spikes? I don't know how deep things get, but just be curious to hear more.
So a couple of thoughts on that. One, in Baltimore City, it appears that our dockless program serves morning commuters at a higher rate than most other markets, according to what I'm hearing from our operators. As well as the Lime Research Project showed a big spike in dockless vehicle trips that end close to a bus stop or a light rail stop or a metro stop. As a percentage of total trips, it's very high in Baltimore City. And I would say another trend we're seeing is a lot of growth of ridership in the major artery streets coming into Baltimore City from the county, despite the fact that you're not able to ride these vehicles in the county currently.
Thanks for sharing. A lot of, seems like some first mile, last mile connectivity and some other interesting bits. Are there questions? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I forgot to mention the big jump in the 28th Street protected bike lane really saw a massive increase in ridership after it was installed this year, and is serving a very wide area of Baltimore City. I'll put a link into the chat with the study, but there is a great graphic on there showing everyone that's riding through that portion of the city, where they started their trip and where they ended their trip.
Thanks, we appreciate that. Are there other questions from commissioners or comments?
I actually have a quick question, Tyler, on your county observations. So are you suggesting that people are like, so you can't ride it in the county, but are you suggesting people are literally crossing the line, picking up a Lime scooter and like headed that way? Or do you think that's part of maybe a bigger network, like getting off at a bus stop and then going out?
I guess I'm just trying to identify a trend that, whereas in the past in this dockless program, we saw almost all the trips happening in the downtown core, we're seeing a lot more happening on the periphery of the city. And I suppose, yeah, there've got to be some people that are getting to the county, getting to the city line from the county and hopping on a dockless vehicle. It appears to be happening based on the data.
Okay. Do you know, would that data be reflective in the 2024 numbers or just the most recent 2025 numbers?
So you can see that in our public facing map on the Baltimore City Department of Transportation dockless vehicle homepage.
Yes, you're right. Yeah.
That will show you all of it. Yep.
Awesome. Thanks, Tyler.
Yeah. Chair, I'm guessing you're going to walk me through the questions on the chat. You want me to just dive into them?
I think Patrick has a question, and then we'll get to the chat.
Yeah, this is something I already put in the chat, but I guess I'm curious how much you're able to look at the data about where ridership is, compare that to where facilities are, and identify here are places where, given the ridership, it makes a lot of sense for us to be adding a facility. Obviously, DOT's got a lot of things on their plate already in terms of trying to finish existing projects, but is this a way, and this a pathway for projects? And also, are you still able to provide funding for things through the fees from the dockless vehicle program?
Yeah, so we are working on getting our hands around where the fees and also the ride tax revenue from the dockless vehicle program money ends up getting spent. I do know it goes into two different buckets. Beyond that, I don't know a lot, but I am anticipating having some clarity in the near future. So hoping to be able to speak more toward that down the line. I certainly think it makes a lot of sense to protect these record riders with bike infrastructure, since we know it has a positive impact on ridership and in reducing safety incidents. I'm sorry, remind me, there was a second aspect of your question? Or was that it?
I think the first piece was just, have you identified corridors where there are a lot of people taking scooters or bikes,
Right.
but there's
Yes.
no facilities.
Yes. And perhaps unsurprisingly, Sean Burnett's team had already identified these corridors and already have them in the process of moving forward in the design process. A couple that come to mind, well, one that comes to mind is West Pratt Street. It really looks like there's high demand for more infrastructure there based on dockless rides. And another corridor, which I'm not sure is in the design slated for design or not, is Pennsylvania Avenue, sort of heading up toward Upton Metro in that area. Also looks like high demand.
Looks like we have Tim, you have your hand raised.
Thank you. My hand was raised actually for the previous topic. So if you want to come back to me at the end so we can stay on topic, that's totally fine.
Okay, yeah, we'll come back at the end. All right, I know we have some things going on in the chat here. Let's see. There's well, yeah, I guess, Tim, this is also related that since there's a lot of people using micromobility to get to transit, will the city work on building bike facilities that connect to transit?
So in terms of dockless vehicle corrals, we have a corral at every metro station. We are working on a project to have extra special corrals at Charm City Circulator stops that are actually going to offer a higher discount for starting or ending your trip in them. That's a pilot project we're working on. And for those metro stations that do not have a corral yet, they will have a corral soon. In terms of other bike facilities, I don't know if I can really speak to that.
The question was, is the city planning to construct bike facilities that connect to transit? Is that correct?
Yes.
That was the question.
Yes. It's part of our prioritization matrix right now. Obviously, we coordinate with MTA on a number of different projects for some of our transit corridors and termini. For example, the great work that MTA is doing over at Mondawmin has a number of different active transportation pieces that are meant to enhance connectivity throughout the area. So that is a regular occurrence.
And then Michelle, I see you have a question or comment. Would you like to come off of mute and speak to that?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I can come onto video as well if that's useful, if that's gonna work. I'm not sure. As you all know, I run the Baltimore City Health Coalition. And part of that is a citywide collaborative. This is the hospitals who take lead on population health, getting patients the indirect services that they need to get into the hospital, to address social determinants of health. And now that the micromobility access program has been on my radar for a couple of months now, we have talked to the hospitals about it, and they are interested in having someone come and discuss that program with them if that's possible. Also learning how we can support getting more registrations into that program. So anyone that would be interested in coming and talking to us, I think the next meeting would be in February, and I can give that more detail to that.
Yes, I would like to. And
I would also like to be involved with that.
Great. I know that Tyler's voice, I don't think I caught the second person's voice. If someone could tell me who that is.
that's Omar with
Omar.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you. And then Omar, could you put your name or email into the chat so I could directly email both of you?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Michelle. And let's see, just have a plug for Melanie, a plug for Shayna Rose on West Pratt Street, doing great engagement out there. And then Ellen, a comment from Ellen. in the chat. Corrals for micromobility could be larger and more useful if they're installed in vehicle parking spots and not on the sidewalk. Drivers don't own the street. All right. Anything else in this section before we move on?
Just want to say thank you to everyone.
All right. Thank you, Tyler. Okay, we're going to move on to our Bikeable Baltimore Region update and next steps from Charlene at BMC.
Great. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm Charlene Mingus, the Active Transportation Planner at Baltimore Metropolitan Council, and going to give you an update on the Bikeable Baltimore Region plan. So you can go to the next slide. Great. So Bikeable Baltimore Region, or BBR, is a plan to create a safe and connected and comfortable bike network that serves the entire Baltimore region, with the goal to provide people of all ages and abilities the option to bike where they need to go, including, transit, schools, parks, jobs, and other essential destinations. So from 2024 to 2025, BMC and the Baltimore Regional Transportation Board worked with community members, advocates, and government partners at the local, regional, and state levels to identify this network. That network is made up of existing bike lanes and paths plus future routes from adopted local plans throughout the Baltimore region. So just want to emphasize the BBR plan does not propose new infrastructure. Anything included in the regional network must already be in a local plan. And the local plan would not replace local priorities or override community input. So next slide. See, designing a bike network this size requires collaboration, transparency, and community input at every step. So for the beginning, we were really fortunate to work alongside residents and staff from every part of the Baltimore region. The goal of this network is to identify, as I mentioned, in all ages and all abilities facilities. So we use the Maryland Department of Transportation level of traffic stress analysis to look at all the existing roads, bike lanes, and paths, as well as those that are planned, and evaluating whether they were low stress or high stress. Let's see, so the current network, as you can see in the map, it's kind of hard to see this level, but we'll have a zoom in on the next slide. We can say here right now, though, the current network includes a mix of facility types ranging from bike lanes to fully separated paths, but they're all low stress, except for a few exceptions I'll talk about in a minute. So we're hoping by identifying this, by prioritizing safe separated facilities, the BBR network will support more people choosing to bike as a practical and comfortable way to get around. The network is organized into three main categories, including regional bikeways, and those are the backbone of the network, linking across the region, so making those longer connections. Community bikeways that connect regional bikeways to centers of activity, and the local bikeways that link neighborhoods and low-stress streets to that larger network. And then the next slide is a zoom in on Baltimore City, so you can see a little more detail. And then I'll follow up at the end of my presentation with a link to our website and story map where you can explore the maps on your own time and get a little bit more of a detailed view of things. So on the next slide, another part of what the project team did is identifying potential improvement areas. So these include high stress bikeways where existing or planned routes may be stressful to bike on, but it could provide key connections as safer options are added. And we also looked at areas where there were network gaps or areas that can improve connectivity, but where bike lanes or paths are not fully planned. So you can see those in kind of the light pink circles and ovals there. So we recognize that while the network includes many safe and comfortable routes, we know it's not fully connected, but the BBR effort will continue beyond this first phase and as the region works together to close the remaining gaps and update plans over time. See, so the next slide gives you a Baltimore City zoomed in view there. And the next slide, the vision for the BBR network includes a little over 1,100 miles of existing and planned bikeways, including 782 planned bikeways. In the next slide, we looked at the transformative impact that a full BBR network could have on the way people live, work, and travel across the region. So we conducted a benefit cost analysis to quantify the annual benefits under select categories, including environmental sustainability, state of good repair, economic competitiveness, and quality of life. So we saw a total of $121.9 million in annual benefits from a full network. And these numbers were largely driven by projected new biking demand from residents living within 3 miles of the planned bike lanes and paths that make up the network. Also, I wanted to point out, as a part of the developing the plan, the team went out around the region and interviewed people on their experiences biking and then what they'd like to see out of our regional bike network. So as you can see on the right, there's just a selection of some of the interviews that were done in Baltimore City, but we did them all over. So next slide. As I mentioned, completing the BBR network would take around 780 miles of new bike lanes and paths. So to help prioritize this effort, projects were categorized based on their current level of progress. So projects with the concept plan, feasibility study, or design underway are already under construction as of September of last year. They've received the most investment, are most likely to move forward first. So these were classified as filling priority gaps, with an imminent project subcategory for the most advanced projects expected to begin construction in 2 years. And then the remaining projects were scored to determine where they should be assigned as mid-range, so like network expansion opportunities, or to the full network build-out category there. And then on the next slide, getting into what we've completed. So the BBR plan was adopted by the Baltimore Regional Transportation Board in November 2025. We also launched the BBR plan with the website and our story map, including interactive maps and a scroll through overview of the key priorities and projects, so you don't have to parse through it a big plan. And then the next steps include providing technical assistance to support 30% design for high priority BBR network projects, launching a grant program to help local jurisdictions update bicycle master plans and advance a regionally connected network, and looking at potentially some of those high stress bikeways and network gaps. And then also looking at developing uniform design standards for the BBR network, looking at low stress bikeway best practices, MDOT complete streets policy, and then local guidance. We'll also be tracking project implementation and performance outcomes for the BBR network, so we can see how we're advancing as a region in building out this network. And we'll also be working to establish a regional working group to coordinate the BBR network implementation across jurisdictions, because we know we want to build those connections from Baltimore City out to the county and then out to the other jurisdictions that make up the region, and then connecting out further beyond the Baltimore region. We also will support the local Safe Routes to School program initiatives to help improve youth safety and access. And I will just drop in the chat right now a link to the BBR website that's got the plan. It's got PDF maps that you can look at, and it's also a link to the story map, which is that interactive web page where you get a high level overview of the plan, and you can zoom in on those maps and get a little bit more idea of the details. So thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you so much, Charlene, for going through all that and rather quickly. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? If not, Ellen in the chat had a question of what actions is the BRTB taking to get some of these on the plan and actually installed? Is there a timeline? So I know, Charlene, you did a good job sort of breaking down how you're prioritizing the projects and which ones are going to move forward, but any more insight there?
Yeah, so we kind of have more big buckets of prioritization. We're working with our local jurisdictions because Baltimore City will set their prioritization of how the projects will advance. But of course, we're going to help with that technical assistance through preliminary design. We also have the transportation land use connections program where we supply technical assistance to do design and feasibility studies. We have the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Group, which meets every other month with bike ped planners from around the region to help bring together sharing updates about projects and then learning new ideas from around the region and outside. Let's see, I'm trying to think of the other big ones we're doing. I think those are some of the biggest initiatives. But yeah, we don't have the ability, we're not going to be building things. We actually are limited by federal restrictions based on our funding. We can only help up to 30% design with funding. But beyond that, we try to help as much as we can to connect people, bring resources and technical guidance as we can.
Thank you so much, Charlene, for walking through your restrictions and what you all are able to do. Any other questions or comments? Looks like Cameron in the chat. Can you explain the difference between proposed routes and network gaps? Putting the proposed routes and network gaps into one map is confusing to me since all of the proposed routes could be considered current network gaps.
Yep. So network gaps are areas where there's nothing currently built, and then none of the local jurisdictions have plans to build anything there. So they're kind of areas where no one's identified a planned facility. So that would be the dashed oval lines there. The plan routes are coming directly from local plans. That kind of clarifies. I know it's a lot to take in. It's a lot, a lot of information, but the story map kind of is a good way to take it in on your own time and kind of explore things. And of course, we have our contact information if you have follow-up questions once you look at that.
All right, thank you again, Charlene. I think we want to stay on time here. So we'll move on to our next section, which I'm really excited about myself personally, proposed MBAC bike rides with Patrick McMahon.
Thanks. So this came out of a couple of different things. I led a bike ride for some of the staff in the Department of Planning recently to go see the newly hardened Big Jump and other sort of bike facilities around the city. And on that ride, one of my colleagues, Austin Davis, who used to serve on the MBAC, mentioned that there had been a bike ride of MBAC members several years ago. And he said it was really a helpful thing in part because at that point, I don't think there were as many of the engineering staff from DOT were as familiar with or had gone out and ridden on some of those routes. And so as a result, there were folks that were like, wow, this is really scary. It's like, yeah, that's the point of bringing you out here, to show that this is really scary and this is why we're interested in doing some of these things. At the same time, that's a little bit of a challenge in terms of making sure that we don't create a ride that's not safe for folks to go on. But the idea is to get all of us out in the field and taking a look at things. You can go to the next slide, or maybe it's just more on this slide. I think the next piece is just sort of talking about, this is probably something that we wouldn't want to do in this week. We'd probably want to wait until after the summer construction season. We saw earlier from Sean some of the projects that are going to be under construction in the near future. Lime Bikes has been really helpful for other tours that I've done to occasionally provide bikes, and I think we could probably get them for commissioners to use. And I sort of put together 4 draft routes that I thought might be useful. These are just starting points for a discussion. We don't have to figure this out today. We won't figure this out today, but trying to think about different places that we could see. So I'll go through those 4 different sort of options. And all these are trying to highlight both some existing facilities that have been out for a while and some new things that are in design and are going to be constructed soon or have been recently upgraded. So this one was the idea of everybody takes the light rail up to Mount Washington, and then we ride along the Jones Falls Trail from Mount Washington down to get on Green Spring, which is in design, I believe, right now. Then ride along the Jones Falls Trail and other pieces through Druid Hill Park to get to the big jump that has recently been upgraded, and then ending somewhere around the Maryland Avenue cycle track, which has been around for quite a while. So all of these are, I think, somewhere in the 6 to 8 miles. This one is a little bit longer, but it's mostly downhill. So I thought that would be a better option. So next one. The next slide is starting at the Rita Church recreation facility over in Clifton Park. Slide's not advancing, I'm not sure. There it is. And hopefully folks can see the routes that are highlighted in white. So this one would get us to not ride on, but take a look at where the Washington Street cycle track would be. And then ride along some of the existing St. Lo Drive. There are a couple of options on Harford Road, which is currently in design. We could either ride along the sidewalk adjacent to Harford Road, or we could ride up to the edge of Harford Road and then take a more meandering route to avoid the heavily trafficked pieces. So this one shows the sort of riding along the sidewalk of Harford Road, going up and seeing some of the new Harford Road pieces along the bridge that goes over Herring Run, and then coming back, going around Lake Montebello or some portion of it, and riding probably not on 33rd Street, probably riding on one of the parallel streets, but taking a look at 33rd Street and hearing a little bit about the plans for the 33rd Street portion of the Baltimore Greenway Trail Network, and then along the big jump, and then down Utah Street and Center Street. So that's also a pretty long one, but again, I think we had done, I think it was a 2-hour ride for a 7-mile sort of piece. So this one's a little bit longer, but again, some pieces of this are downhill as opposed to the uphill pieces that we did for the Department of Planning one. The next one starts at Lake Montebello and sort of reverses some of that. And since there's not a great north-south facility in East Baltimore right now, sort of cuts back and forth to try a number of different sort of streets to sort of show some of the north-south and some of the east-west facilities. Obviously, Central Avenue's in design right now. North Avenue has the bus bike lanes that are in existence. Broadway's got existing bike lanes. Preston and Monument have as well, and eventually going down to Guilford Avenue and getting into downtown. And then the final option is that I put together is Sharp Leadenhall to Lake Montebello. This one's a little bit shorter, but more uphill. And I believe that there's a bunch of work that's happening right now in design for the Sharp Leadenhall area and for the segments of the Gwynns Falls Trail that go through there. And then still waiting for the slide to change, and then going up the Maryland Avenue cycle track up to Utah, or up to Center, and then to Utah, and then over the big jump, and then along or parallel to 33rd Street and Lake Montebello. So a lot of these overlap in different ways to try and figure out what's a safe route that touches on some pieces. But I would love to figure out a way to move this forward. Obviously, there are some challenges from sort of liability perspective and other things, but something I was hoping that we could do at some point in the future.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much, Patrick. We're getting close to time, but any quick questions or comments about this from any commissioners?
Oh, hey, quick comment on that, or clarification, I guess. For the green route that goes through Green Spring, right, there is a flex post and stripe facility there. It just hasn't, like, we're supposed to put bus bulbs in, so that's why it's under design right now, is that to make it a true two-way facility, it needs to have those bulbs to deconflict southbound cyclists and the buses. So you could say it's 50% completed at this point.
Thanks, Matthew. And then I didn't forget about you, Tim. I know you had a question from a while ago. Before we close out, I want to get your question.
Yes, thank you. So this was on the subject of the 311 requests for parking citations. In that map of where the citations happen, you can see that there are a lot of hotspots. The one that I'm specifically thinking of is the 1800 block of Maryland Avenue, where people park pretty frequently. I've gotten a lot of hostility from drivers who are parking there, and there's very little in the way of infrastructure to keep people from parking there. I think the flex posts are 10, 15 feet apart. Is DOT looking at all into adding more hardened infrastructure, concrete barriers, steel bollards, that sort of thing, so that people are physically stopped from parking there instead of just, as is being, getting the gentle suggestion that maybe it's a bike lane and they shouldn't park there?
Thanks for that question, Tim. Yes, the city is looking at upgrading existing facilities.
Okay. Are the citations a factor in that?
No, not at this time.
Okay. I think that would be helpful.
All right, we are almost done here. I want to give a quick update or shout out to community events and meetings that are coming up. If you're brave enough, there's Bike Party this Friday at 7 p.m. We have the Chenecopin Trail meeting coming up on February 2nd at 6:30. I think Quentin was here on the call. And I don't know if there are any other, there's another Greenway Trails Coalition meeting that is on March 3rd at 6 p.m. That will be also coming up. And then our upcoming impact meetings, April, we're excited. We're going to do a hybrid meeting in person. And then July 29th, virtual again. And then October 28th, hybrid. Is there any other comments from commissioners or other folks before we move to adjourn? I see Matthew and Tim, your hands are up. Are those up from previously?
Oh, that was Legacy.
And then I think I saw a hand raised from Liz Cornish.
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, I'm a little late joining. I know it's already been brought up once, but I really wanted to just reiterate the value and importance of getting the bike lanes done as quickly as possible, especially because we're really challenged. I'm in Charles Village. My neighbors have been digging out the crosswalks, and then every time a plow truck comes through, they just push more snow into the crosswalks. And so while obviously I would love to see the bike lanes cleared for actual biking, I think it would also just be really great because it would guarantee a safe place for people to walk. Because we know the bus stops aren't getting cleared out. We know nobody's coming to do the crosswalks. This is the worst I've seen it. I live on Maryland Ave. I've been here for 10 years and I know the city can do better. And so I would just wanted to end the meeting with my comment since I'm a little late to the game and just really encourage DOT to do what they can to get out there. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. All right. I know we're at time. Do we have time for one more question or we need to run? I think I see Carson.
I think we've got time for one more.
Yep.
Hello. I'd second the comments about the snow, but I also wanted to make a point on maintenance of bike lanes today and in the future. There's a comment on the Jones Falls Gateway meeting that was talking about maintaining those paths because those would be shared use paths and at sidewalk level rather than on the roadway level. And I think it would be interesting to consider that in terms of the equipment that's needed to maintain bike lanes, because some of the sections of the Jones Falls Trail, downtown and in Midtown, are on sidewalks, and those often have glass on them. I've gotten a flat tire there before, and I ride on the road now instead. So just something to consider as the equipment that is needed to maintain the bike lanes.
All right, thank you, Carson. And with that, we're going to move to adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone, and we will see you on April 29th, either in person or virtually.